And sellers at the Cannes Film Festival are navigating growing uncertainty sparked by Trump's threat to impose a 100% tariff on internationally made films. The film industry leaders have warned that it could simply derail global partnerships and weaken Hollywood's reach abroad. The festival's bustling market, the world's largest, draws more than 15,000 participants from 140 nations, all gathering to forge deals and really shape the future of the film industry. For a closer look at that and the global film industry as a whole, we're now joined by Nihaar Sinha, the co-founder of Indus Valley Media, an indie film and television studio in LA. Welcome to the program. Thanks for taking time to chat with us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, describe the mood as you understand it at this year's Cannes Film Festival.
I would say the mood at Cannes this year, and I just got back from Cannes myself, was cautiously optimistic, and I think that would have been the case even aside from the president's remarks about tariffs, just because of how the industry has recovered from the setbacks of during COVID, which led to the stock price corrections and the belt tightening, which then led to 2 strikes in Hollywood, and even into the wildfires in January. And so Hollywood has been an industry very much in a protracted recovery, I think. And so in Cannes this year, there was more buying activity, and there was more of a sense of optimism that things were on the upswing. And then, of course, in this business the past few years, it's one thing after the other. And the announcement about these tariffs sent shockwaves for sure, and they were on everyone's mind. But that being said, I think the mood was a little bit sort of business as usual. There's a lot of uncertainty around what a tariff regime could look like. There are so many questions as to what even comprises a foreign film,
right,
what's realistic, and with this administration, we've seen, a lot of movement, frankly, on trade matters. And so, I don't know how many people actually expect that particular policy prescription to go into effect when all is said and done. I think everyone's sort of taking a wait-and-see approach. And in the meantime, there is still buying activity, and lots of fodder over cocktails on the cassette, that's for sure.
Always the fodder over cocktails. Now, with that positive background, what do you think were some of the real dominant themes that have emerged so far in the films that have been showcased this year?
I think there is a more of a breadth in terms of the types of films that are being made and sold, and there are always art house films and interesting experimental directorial debuts and stylized works that are being sold and premiering at the festival. But Mission Impossible was also in competition, and Spike Lee's latest film, which is an ode to Kurosawa but stars Denzel Washington. It's one of his most commercial works in quite a while, premiering at the festival. And so I think we're seeing more of a showcase of the breadth of films. And I think that kind of also reflects a marketplace and greenlight decisions in light of where the industry has gone in the past few years, and a need, a recognition to be more broad, to speak to a variety of audiences, which include everyone from cinephiles and film lovers to the more occasional moviegoer.
It was also nice to see Denzel Washington get surprised with his recognition there this year, too. 70 years old, there's not much that can surprise him. But moving on, in what ways do you think that the Trump-era policies have impacted the international production and distribution? And remember, Trump made this announcement, there was a lot of pushback, and he immediately pulled back the next day. So are people hopeful?
I think people are hopeful. I think people are anxious. I think international co-productions and just the way that films are made cross-border, that genie is not being put back in the bottle. And at this point, there are local economies around the world that rely on the stimulus from Hollywood productions. And the way that filters into policy is that it informs the production incentives and tax incentives that those governments offer productions that are, what make them so appealing in the first place. And so that's not going to change it. In fact, President Macron recently had his Choose France summit on May 19th in Versailles, and Ted Sarandos was one of the few American business people who was invited. And one of the themes in that meeting was how to make sure that there are more productions in France. And they were talking about ways to tweak the current incentive program. And so that's not going to change. And the talent pool, around the world being where it is now as compared to 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago,
Right.
is a permanent shift, as well as the distribution model where, international box office was always important for the film industry, but that was through this sort of Byzantine system of local broadcasters and affiliates. Now you have services like Netflix that are natively in 195 countries and are reaching consumers directly around the world. And so their need to speak to those audiences and produce more local language productions is only going to increase. And so I don't think it's a question of whether we can roll back international productions. I think it's more sort of settling into a new equilibrium in terms of carrot and stick, because the tax incentives around the world are the carrot. There's also
Sure.
quotas, and there's also language and
Yeah.
cultural tests and those types of regulations that are in place in Europe and other places. And so it's actually not a radically irrational idea, I believe, for the American market to think about that as well. But I don't think anyone knows where it's all going to net out right now.